Good afternoon, everyone, to the February Community Oversight Board meeting. I will start with the reading of the appeal statement pursuant to provisions of section 2.68030 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws. Please take notice that decisions of the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County Community Oversight Board may be appealed to the Chancery Court of Davidson County for review under common law writ of cert. Any appeal must be filed within 60 days after entry of a final decision by the board. Any person or other entity considering an appeal should consult with an attorney to ensure that time and procedural requirements are met. I'll go ahead and take roll here. Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown, are you with us? I see you're muted.
Okay, I'm present. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Would you like to go by Judge Brown or Mr. Brown?
Either one works. I'm retired, so either one works.
All right, thank you. Mr. Kamaguch, don't think is with us yet. Mr. Goddard.
Here.
Mr. Hayes.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Dr. Hildreth.
Present.
Mr. Holloway.
Here.
Dr. Kong.
Here.
And Ms. McCree.
Present.
And Mr. Witzel.
Here.
Thanks, everyone. I'll turn it over to Mr. Pinkley for the electronic meeting statement.
Thank you, Chair Martinez. So under Governor Lee's Executive Order 71, we're meeting today to conduct essential business. So we just need a motion and a second and an affirmative vote that we are meeting today to conduct essential business, and we're doing so electronically to protect the safety and welfare of Tennesseans.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any focused discussion on that? If not, I will take a roll call vote here. Judge Brown?
Okay.
Mr. Kamaguch? Not with us yet. Mr. Goddard?
Aye.
Mr. Hayes?
Aye.
Dr. Hildreth?
Aye.
Mr. Holloway?
Aye.
Dr. Kong?
Aye.
And Ms. McCree? Was that it? I don't think your microphone was on there.
Aye.
Thank you, Ms. McCree. And Mr. Witzel?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Witzel, and I vote aye as well. Next.
Oh, sorry. Can I interrupt 1 second? Mr. Kamaguch is in. We're moving him. I just wanted to let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Next thing on the agenda is the minutes. Anyone wanted to move to approve the minutes or had any suggestions, discussions on that?
I move that we approve the minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Mr. Goddard. Any focused discussion on the minutes? Not. Go through the roll again. Judge Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Kamaguch?
Aye.
Mr. Goddard?
Aye.
Mr. Hayes?
Aye.
Dr. Hildreth?
Aye.
Mr. Holloway?
Aye.
Dr. Kong?
Aye.
Ms. McCree?
Aye.
And Mr. Witzel?
Aye.
Thank you, and I vote aye as well. I will get into my chair remarks here. I want to welcome everyone, especially the new members joining us today. I'm glad to see a couple of your faces. If you think back to a year ago, we were meeting at Rose Park, and little did we know that that was going to be the last meeting meet in person for the whole year, and a year later as well. I hope that we can get back to meeting in person soon. If you noticed, I didn't call Mr. Hughes' name during the roll. Mr. Hughes resigned his position today, and I accepted the resignation. He indicated that he was eternally grateful for the members of the board, the staff, and the members of Metro Council. And it has been one of the great honors of his life to serve the community in this capacity. I thanked Mr. Hughes for his service, and I told him that I am grateful for the opportunity to have worked alongside him over this past year. And I deeply value the insightful contributions that he's brought to the Community Oversight Board. I know that we will continue to collaborate with him because he is a dedicated community leader, and I'm sure we'll lean on him in the future. We have been monitoring HB 374, House Bill 374 at the state legislature. I indicated, my concerns with that bill to Metro Legal. I expressed my concerns, saying that HB 374, as a reminder, is placing necessary and damaging new regulation on Nashville's Community Oversight Board. The bill seeks to require us as board members to complete the MNPD Citizens Police Academy within 6 months of being elected as a board member. And if one board member doesn't meet this requirement, then the entire board loses its authority. So I indicated that HB 374 is unnecessary because we already include provision to complete the Citizens Police Academy in our bylaws. And it's dangerous. It could render our board ineffective, and we are basically at the whim of MNPD. MNPD has not been able to offer the Citizens Police Academy over the past year because of the pandemic. So that would have definitely put us out of service if this bill were actually law today. I have also been in contact with Mr. Bunton at the mayor's office, and they are also strategizing, looking at ways to make sure that this piece of legislation doesn't end up being as damaging as it is currently. I originally scheduled Councilmember Johnston to come speak with us about her bill regarding license plate readers, but she had to reschedule. She's traveling at the moment, so she will be joining us at next month's meeting. She has deferred the LPR bill until the second meeting of April, so we still have some time to discuss that if the board wants to. So that is it for my chair's remarks. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. If not, I will move I'll move around some things in the agenda here. I want to go to new members welcome and introductions. Yes, Mr. Kamaguch.
Hey, thank you for that. Can you speak on, you said a piece around how that legislation that you mentioned before, can you speak on how it is like damaging? I think you said something around it being extremely damaging right now. Can you speak a little bit more on that piece, please?
Sure. So the bill, if enacted, would require the Community Oversight Board member to complete the Citizens Police Academy within 6 months of being appointed. So if we had members who were appointed, say, last January or February, they would not have been able to complete the Citizens Police Academy within 6 months because MNPD was unable to offer a Citizens Police Academy because of the pandemic. And the bill stipulates that if community oversight board member does not complete the Citizens Police Academy within the 6 months, then the entire board loses its authority. So that is, that's the dangerous part there, that because of something that is out of our control, we lose the authority that the community of Nashville has granted us.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for that, clearing that up. I just wanted to cue up how, I'm afraid or just fearful that some of these actions are meant to deter regular everyday people from joining the board. So I just wanted to say that and just say that out loud so we can just be thinking about how we play offense against that.
Thank you, Mr. Kamaguch. And I didn't say this at the beginning, but if for the new board members, if you would like to say something, you can just press the hand icon to raise your hand, and I will call on you there. Sorry about that. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Kamaguch. I do think it's important that the board is aware of that and that we are doing everything that we can, as Director Pritchard and I, to try and fight it. Director Pritchard, I saw your hand up.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say that I'm going to send a bill out in a few minutes so that everyone has it in front of them and can look at the pending legislation.
Thank you. Any other questions on that? If not, like I said, we can move up the new board member introductions and welcome to the next thing on our agenda. So for the new board members, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how that led you to serve on the COB. I'd appreciate it to help get to know you better. So I'll start with Judge Brown.
All right, thank you. Well, I graduated from Vanderbilt undergraduate in law schools, 62 and 65, and went with the Army for active duty about 6 years. Was a judge advocate and stayed in the reserves for another 24 as a judge advocate and retired as a colonel. Went after I got off active duty in 71, I joined the U.S. Attorney's Office as an assistant and later first assistant, and then was U.S. Attorney here for 10 and a half years, and spent a little time with the bankruptcy court with the national coordinator for bankruptcy fraud. And then for the last 22 years, I was a magistrate judge here in Nashville and recently retired. And I've obviously had a lot of experience with civil rights cases and as a prosecutor with civil rights cases and those areas. And so I retired and had a little extra time and thought this would be something I might be able to help with.
Thank you, Judge Brown, and welcome. Next, I will go to Mr. Hayes, who's not a stranger to this board, but welcome, Mr. Hayes.
Yeah, good evening. Afternoon, actually. I do want to say that I do really appreciate the hard work that this board has been doing. The MOU that you all managed to get passed, and also you started from the ground up with the bylaws and all the training and doing the hiring. So now that you all have done all of that, now it's a good time for me to come on the board. So, but yeah, my training is really an engineer and computer scientist, and also a theologian. Getting those three things together, it might be a little bit more challenging, but it's made me the person that I am, the advocate that I am for caring about people, the work that I've done with community oversight now with the NAACP and also at one time with NOAA. I have worked for Ford Motor Company primarily, but also a number of Fortune 500 companies, and managing and working with work teams. Also, I'm excited to actually get some help take the board to another level as far as the work that you all have been doing. And I guess that's about it. Just ready to get to work.
Thank you, Mr. Hazel, and welcome. Next, we'll go to Dr. Kong.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. I'm Stephanie Kong. I hope you're able to enjoy the incredible weather today. It was so beautiful walking outside. Really honored to be here. I just completed my Doctor of Public Health, so really hoping to bring a lot of those analytical and public health skills that I've gained over the years. I currently work as a health policy director for a Congress member, so mostly cover healthcare and public health, but also gun violence prevention and other human rights portfolios that I think will be relevant to the work here. Really excited about all that y'all have already accomplished in such a short amount of time, and really hoping to enhance the work moving forward. So thank you so much for having me. Oh, and also just really happy to be the first API member of the board and represent also my neighborhood. I live in Glencliff, so.
Thank you, Dr. Khan, and welcome. And finally, Ms. McCree.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm really excited to be here. I'm a recent graduate from Tennessee State University, and I currently serve in the office of Congressman Jim Cooper. My background, I just got the degree in political science, but I've been doing work since about the age of 14 or 15 in just bringing communities together and engaging young people to get involved in local government and political processes. And so, again, I'm really excited to be here and bring young voices to the table. I'm really excited to get young people galvanized and involved in every aspect of government, including the Community Oversight Board. So thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to working with all of you.
Thank you, Ms. McCree. Welcome. Mr. Hayes.
I just wanted to, because I'm really familiar with Zoom, but not as familiar with WebEx, and I was looking for the hand. But I did want to say concerning Mr. Martinez, Chair Martinez's report concerning the Citizens Academy. I did want to say that it is in that in the bylaws or the legislation is there about an equivalent. So I spent some time today trying to see if I could find an equivalent class, but that might be one avenue that we could go, at least we can investigate, is looking at trying to find an equivalent class. It may be difficult, but there may be something out there that we can do that can substitute for that.
Yes, Mr. Hayes, that's a good idea. And actually, later on, we'll be discussing an opportunity for some work on that. We'll create an education committee that will be dedicated to finding these types of alternatives on top of more opportunities for us to get more knowledge, experience as board members so that we can best represent the community. So thank you for bringing that up.
I wanted to say two things. One of the things is, Mr. Hayes, the hand is at the very bottom of the participant page, and it's on the right-hand side. So
I found it.
You found it? Okay.
I did find it. Yeah, I did raise my hand electronically. I was waiting until I found the hand, but I did.
Okay. Hey, and then the second thing I want. Oh, okay. And then the second thing I wanted to say is for the equivalent piece. You know, for last year when they canceled the Citizens Police Academy, we definitely tried to make certain that board members had other alternatives. So we made certain that we had available to them to join the NACO conference that they offer annually. And then any type of webinars that came about, we made certain that we shared those with all the board members as well. So yeah, the equivalent piece has been taken out of the newest legislation. I'm going to send that to you guys shortly. And then like Chair Martinez said, we're going to talk a little bit more about what we can do to try to prepare, you all for, to meet the requirements that they have placed on the board.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And when you're done raising your hand, if you could click the hand again, and that way, there you go, perfect. All right, I think Director Fisher, you're next with the Executive Director's report.
Okay, thank you. So I sent you all the Executive Director's report. I'm going to go over it. There are a few things that are I think especially important, but some of this is the same information that that has kind of where we've been for the last couple months as it pertains to just regular business as usual in the office. So we're still accepting public comment. We have a private number for that. That is 629-255-1906 for our community to call in to either, give comments or give us information. And so that's still available. The office that we work out of, which is located in the Washington Square building, and for you new members, that building was part of the Christmas Day bombing, but it is up and running, and we have been allowed to go back in. It was a part of the crime scene. Some of the floors had the windows blown out, but our office was not damaged, and so we are able to go back into the office. But right now, because of the COVID situation, we are still working remotely, and so we have set up a process for when people want to come into the office, the employees, then, there's a process to, to keep us safe, which is to wear your mask, to take your temperature, and that type of stuff. So we have a safety plan in place. For the personnel update, we are still trying to fill our open investigator position. And Assistant Director Clausey is working with the Human Resources Department to make certain that continues to be on the forefront. Because we definitely don't want to lose that position, and we want to get it filled because it's been vacant since last August. But of course, with the Metro budget, they froze a lot of the positions. But now that they're kind of slowly opening those back up, we want to get that position filled as quickly as possible. For the month of February, the MNCO team, the staff members, they attended. We continuously look for trainings throughout the months that we can attend virtually. And so this month we attended, some of us, the Civilian Oversight of Police Surveillance and Technology. And then there was another that was hosted by the Council on Criminal Justice, and it was called Stopping Violence and Saving Lives Using Community-Based Strategies. Those were two webinars that we attended or will attend for the month of February. The next section is about complaints and contacts. And so we continue to receive calls from the public. And so and how this works is we don't document every call that is, if it's a non-complaint call, we document that and we report that. But of course, our phone rings all the time for lots of other things. So this month we received 3 investigative complaints. And we assisted with 7 non-complaint calls. And I also initiated 2 investigations into the use of force by MMPD, and I'll get into those a little later. Community outreach, we continue with that. I mean, community outreach is something that we are really trying to refocus and try to figure out the best ways to connect with the community. I know that some people are just oversaturated with Zoom calls and webinars and all that, but we want to definitely continue to make certain that the community is aware of what we're doing and how to make complaints and keep them educated on our processes. And so our community liaison, Ms. Thompson, she continues to update our social medias and to stay, connected with media, to tell us what's happening in the community so that we can partner and share our services with the community. And she's currently working on redesigning all of our outreach materials. We need to update that information. And so we've been working on that and getting some of that translated as well. We're trying to find a translation service to get our brochures translated into Spanish. I was a guest panelist for District 21's community meeting on February the 22nd. It was regarding license plate readers, and Councilmember Brandon Taylor and Councilwoman Jennifer Gamble invited me and a few others to talk about license plate readers with Commander Graves and Commander Corman. And so it was actually a really good meeting. Lots of community members came out. The next meeting that I'll be a part of will be, as a guest panelist, will be the State of Black Nashville Public Safety Town Hall meeting. That is on this Saturday, February the 27th. And the meeting is a virtual meeting. I think it's also open to the public. And so you can just go to their website for more information on that. And I will be sitting on the public safety panel with some other community leaders as well as public officials. Our MNCO research analysts continue to work on the research advisory report that was initiated by the NAACP. That report will focus on the hiring and recruitment procedures of MMPD. And so Deputy Chief Loki has reached out to talk about how they're creating a panel. She's invited me and whoever I invite, Dr. Velir, or research analyst Orozco, to talk about some of strategies for recruiting and retention and hiring. So we are working on that. I'm waiting for the invite to figure out what the dates are. I think that's what she's doing now, trying to get everyone on board and get a date. So that would be next. I know that Dr. Velir attended 2 meetings with the city councils. They have a special committee on jail data, and he attended that. He's representing the COB. He's there to be a help to the committee when it pertains to data. And so that's been going really well. And I know that both of the analysts attended a webinar hosted by NACO, which is analyzing and reporting the use of force statistics. I asked Captain Laura, who's on the call, to give me information on the body-worn cameras, because I just want to keep the community informed on how that's going. And he sent a report, and it said that the body-worn cameras, as well as the in-car cameras for North and Madison precincts, are scheduled for March the 15th. And the following precincts and teams have already been outfitted. That would be the West Precinct, the East Precinct, countywide traffic. The 3 of the Titans teams, there's 6 teams, 3 of them have been outfitted. The Special Response Team, as well as the Office of Community Engagement and Partnerships. And to date, there has been 440 active employees equipped with the body-worn cameras and 236 vehicles. And so it looks like they're making progress and moving along with that. And then, of course, all of the the department-wide patrol supervisors have been trained, and 163 Community Service Bureau lieutenants and sergeants have been trained. So that's really good, and it looks like they're progressing well. On Wednesday, January the 27th, at our last board meeting, there was an officer-involved shooting. I received a DEC notification, and I also received a call from the CID commander that a man was shot by an officer while he was sitting in or blocked in his vehicle. Investigator Clausey and Johnson responded to the scene, which was located in the 2200 block of Brick Church Pike. They were briefed by MMPD upon arrival to the scene and by the TBI. The case is being investigated by the TBI. And I also opened up an investigation into that was a director-initiated shooting, as well as they invited us to headquarters to view the body cameras. And so we did that as well. On Wednesday, February the 10th, I received a notification from DEC requesting that we respond, the MNCOB respond to the scene related to a citizen being shot while running away from MMPD officers. The MNC investigator responded to the scene, and I opened an investigation into the shooting as well, and the case is also being investigated by MMPD. I sent you all a use of force advisory report. We got a response from from Chief Drake regarding the use of force consent decree. It was an advisory report that we sent out, and also the Policing Policy Commission also sent a list of recommendations. We're going to have Dr. Velir talk about that shortly, but I just wanted to tell you that I received the response from Chief Drake on what recommendations that he would accept and implement. I'm still a part of the After Action Review Board that is regarding the Christmas Day shooting. We have had at least 4 meetings. I believe that we have several scheduled coming up. It's every Friday right now at 3 o'clock. And so it looks like we're probably going to have at least 3 or 4 more meetings. We have been interviewing people and those meetings are going really well. So I anticipate that it will close up within the next month. And then there will be a report that we will issue to Chief Drake and to the mayor's administration. I attended a force review board meeting on Thursday, February the 4th. There were 2 hearings that day regarding police officer involved shootings regarding animals. I will say that that was the second time I attended a force review board meeting. And just to give some insight, the meeting that I attended regarding that last year around the same time, I will say that I was super impressed with the fact that this particular force review board meeting was very streamlined. It wasn't chaotic. It was very clear. It looked as if they had made really lots of changes in how the process went, so that not only I understood what was happening, the officers also who were there who had been involved in the shootings understood what was happening, as well as what some outcomes would be, and if they needed more assistance or if there was training recommended. They got all that up front. And so I really appreciated the fact that, that the new team under Chief Drake's command has worked towards making that process a lot smoother and streamlined than it was the following year. And lastly, I'll close out and just welcome all of our new board members. I really appreciate it. Working with the COB has been just a tremendous opportunity for me and our team. And I just want to tell you that it is a lot of work. We have had many, many meetings. And so I look forward to working with you all and getting your insight and your assistance. And I'm just really excited for this new opportunity. So thank you all. And that concludes my report. And if anyone has questions, I'll take them now.
Thank you, Director Fitchard. Mr. Kamaguch.
Yeah, I just want to echo, like, it is a lot of work. I think Director Fisher, I think you told us one time that we met more than city council or it was some unique thing where we met like 3 times as much as city council. So, but I enjoy it. I have a lot of fun. And it's great that the piece you talked about, the force review board being more like organized, because I remember the last time we had spoke about it, it was like difficult. I think somebody had talked about how it was difficult to keep up. It was all over the place. But my 2 things were general questions that I need to be reminded of. And so excuse the ignorance. Can you just talk about the relationship that we have with TBI and what we kind of have set in stone when it comes to like the oversight of the body cameras?
Yes. So the last time I met with the TBI, which I would say was September, we had a meeting. There was some issues regarding the language that they were concerned about in the MOU that we presented. And so we haven't really heard back from them, but I will say, and it may be just the fact that they have been very cooperative with us as it pertains to once we respond to the scene. They have always been responsive to us and briefed us on what was happening and kept us in the loop. That of course, is different. I mean, that's what they said, and that's what we requested in the MOU. We don't have that agreement at hand. But I would say that the relationship that the TBI has with Mr. Clausy and keeping him abreast, and myself, usually they give him the call because he's out there on the scene. And when I've been on the scene, the head agent in charge has always briefed me about what was happening. Of course, if they're investigating it, it's a very confidential thing. And so, we just have to sit on it until their case is completed, which then goes to the District Attorney General's office. And so we have cases that we do need to follow up on, and they may have been completed, and the DA's office is, still handling those. But so I would say that the relationship at this point has been, they have followed up with us and kept us in the loop on what was happening. So, which I think is a positive thing. So that part is good. And then the second part of your question, was that everything? Sorry. What?
I was curious about, because you had mentioned the body cameras and then
the body cameras. Yeah.
If you could just talk to us about what oversight of those body cameras or what will look like, or what your experience has been, because I mean, I think you also referenced that there's been already 400 plus body cameras already out there. So I'm just curious about what your experience has been and what's the plan as they onboard more body cameras to provide proper oversight.
Right. So one of the things now, as it pertains to the body cameras, what we would like is that for every case that we request body cameras, we want that information to have it directly sent to us and not have to go to them and see it and get pieces of it. And so we just recently, Mr. Clausy and Peter, Dr. Velir and I met with the ITS team to set up a server where they would send it, of course, because most of that information is very confidential, to send that information to us directly, and we would have access to it directly out of our office. As and that would be for us to look at it as it pertains to cases. As it pertains to just oversight over the body cameras, we haven't had that discussion. The body camera information is housed within the police department and the DA's office. And usually how we get body camera information is we request it, we get it, it's unredacted, and we get all the information. But, if we wanted to do audits on it, or if we have, some interest in a particular thing, we can request it. But as for looking at all body camera footage, I don't think that we have what you would consider oversight over.
And then my last, just like very brief, you said that we had like 7 non-complaint calls, or just like 7 calls that we had. Just like 7 calls that, can you talk more about like what those 7 non-complaint calls? Can you just give us a little bit more information about those?
Yeah, so people may call with instances that they need assistance, but if they've called the wrong department. So it could be that they are making a complaint, like we've had a person that called about, there was a homeless encampment near his property. People were making lots of noises. So we referred him to the right person. So those non-complaint calls are specific to calls that we may have referred to other agencies for services.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Director Fitchard? There's none. We can move on to Dr. Velir for the Policy Advisory Report, Use of Force Consent Decrees.
All right, thank you. So the board issued the Policy Advisory Report on Use of Force Consent Decrees last year. This was before the Mayor's Policing Policy Commission released their report, and many of the recommendations from the COB's report were incorporated into the Policing Policy Commission's recommendations. The report made 7 recommendations and reiterated a recommendation made earlier in June. The earlier recommendation was that de-escalation tactics should be required before an officer uses force. and failing to use reasonable de-escalation techniques when circumstances permit would make the officer subject to disciplinary action, and that physical force should only be used as a last resort. The MMPD partially accepted that recommendation and stated that they are working on policy revisions that will clarify the requirements of de-escalation where feasible. But they did not accept the language of using force as a last resort in order to provide reasonable alternatives. They did not like that language. But they are working on revisions to other aspects. The first recommendation made in the report is that MMPD should review policies, procedures, and trainings to ensure consistencies between policies in the manual and prohibitions that are covered in training. The MMPD accepted that recommendation and is working on a comprehensive review of all use of force policies and will issue policy clarifications on prohibitions that are included in training. The second recommendation was that promotional and annual in-service supervisor training include a focus on conducting use of force investigations. This was also accepted, and the MMPD Director of Training has been instructed to implement training programs that would include use of force investigations for supervisors. The third recommendation was that MMPD should create a crisis intervention team and that they should work closely with mental health professionals and when possible, co-respond for crisis-related calls for service. They accepted this recommendation and will be evaluating the development of a comprehensive program. The fourth recommendation that was that MMPD should categorize all uses of force above unresisted handcuffing into 3 levels that will guide the reporting and investigation of use of force. They partially accepted this recommendation. They are reviewing the force reporting process, and they stated that the substantive recommendation for the revision of the force level that triggers the reporting is accepted. So the reporting all use of force above unresisted handcuffing is accepted, but the recommendation regarding the assigning them to levels 1, 2, or 3 is still under consideration. The recommendation 5 was that a force investigation team should be created as a branch of OPA to investigate criminal and administrative aspects of uses of force resulting in serious injury, all firearm discharges, misapplications of force, and other serious uses of force as defined by the department, as well as investigating fatal uses of force for administrative standards parallel to the TBI criminal investigation. They accepted that recommendation, and they stated that pending revision to MMPD, TBI, and district attorney MOUs, they are directing that they implement and formalize the process with appropriate division level procedures. Recommendation 6 was that MMPD should track and analyze use of force data and create an annual use of force report that's available to the public. They accepted this recommendation. And then the 7th recommendation was that they should publish an interactive dashboard of monthly or quarterly use of force statistics that includes race, ethnicity, age, and gender of subjects, types of force applied, types of resistance, injuries sustained by officers and subjects, and geographic areas where the force occurred. They partially accepted this recommendation since they don't have direct control over the MMPD website. The ability to support interactive dashboards on the Metro government website is not at a place where they're able to do all of the things that we recommended at this time. And it's in conversations that I've had with ITS, the current website does have limitations where adding some of the information that we requested in that recommendation will be challenging. However, the new version of the website, which should be rolling out hopefully soon, will have those capabilities, and there will be more flexibility in what can be put onto the Metro government website and would allow for them to fully accept this recommendation. And those are the 7 recommendations. 4 out of the 7 were accepted and 3 were partially accepted. And so I think that's a very good, shows that they engaged with all of the recommendations in a really serious way and considered what aspects of those could be implemented and when possible did implement the recommendations that the board made. If there's any questions about this, I'm happy to answer those. For any of the new board members, if you do have questions about the research or policy work that we're doing, or please feel free to reach out. That goes for previous board members as well. I'm always happy to have conversations with board members about the work that we're doing, the recommendations that have been issued in the past, and recommendations that we're thinking about for future reports.
Thank you, Dr. Velir. Mr. Hayes.
I would like to know, this report, is there going to be a response to what was sent back? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. We are, so I think that's a good conversation for the board to have, and Chair Martinez and Director Fitchard, I think can lead that conversation, some of that conversation. But I do think it's important to think for the board members to have that conversation about what response you all are interested in, and we will continue to follow the recommendations and the implementation as they're being implemented by the police department. And if there are areas where the board would like us to get more information or really focus on with the response, we are definitely open to whatever response the board feels is necessary.
Okay, and the reason I mentioned that is because the one that pertained to use of force, it seems like the perception is that it was a little bit too restrictive, I guess, the recommendation that the COB had. But when I look at the language that is patterned after the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, there's a section, hold on a second here. 364, where it actually does talk about that. And I know that issue of last resort, I would just like for us to at least look at that in a little bit more detail and possibly do a response on that item.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. That's definitely possible to expand on what Dr. Velir was saying, since these are recommendations that the board issued, then it's up to us to decide whether we are satisfied with the response or not. So there's definitely an opportunity for us to get together, discuss ways that we can respond to MMPD to get them to accept the policy recommendations that we make. So we can definitely do that, and probably in the Rules and Bylaws Committee as well. Director Fitchard, did you have your hand up before?
Yeah, but you can go ahead and take Judge Brown first.
Okay, Judge Brown.
Oh, I thought it was I read the full report and I thought it was very well done. Interesting statistics. The one question I guess I would have, the police report response I thought was quite favorable but the question I would have is a lot of their responses indicated, it was work in progress. Do we have any rough indication of when they have a completion date? I always hate to sort of see something as we're working to put something out without some sort of a deadline.
I can jump in and answer that. I met with Deputy Chief Green as well as Deputy Chief Taylor, and they discussed a little bit of the use of force because that was right before they released it to me. And so they did not have any deadlines attached to it. And so that's something that we can talk to them about. But I think that they were following the Policing Policy Commission's time frame in that particular report, which I will send to you all because you probably haven't seen it. In that report, they had time frames from that needed to be done immediately, some that needed to be done within the first 3 months, some that needed to be done within 6 months, but within a whole year, they wanted certain things implemented. And so I'm assuming, because I don't have the report in front of me, that some of these implementations are going to be based on that time frame that was given through the mayor's office on that particular commission's report.
Thank you, Director Pitcher. Judge Brown, does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Witzel?
Oh, yes, I was just curious about for recommendation 4, make sure I'm looking at that one correctly. Yeah, their response to recommendation 4, the part about the level 1, 2, and 3 that is under consideration. I'm just curious to know if we know, was that something they were already looking at one point, or are they considering that recommendation purely off our recommendation? It may not be something we even know.
I'm not aware that they were looking at a leveled categorization system of use of force, but I am not sure if that was something that they had discussed in the past.
Thank you. I was just curious.
Director Pitcher, did you have something to say or?
Yeah, I wanted to add to the conversation that when I met with Deputy Chief Green as well as Deputy Chief Taylor, there was one other recommendation that was discussed. They discussed it briefly with me, but it actually is one that has not been addressed in this report. And so I wanted Dr. Velir to bring that up. But I will tell you that it is something that they said that they were still working through with PERF and some, other police agencies regarding it. So if Dr. Velir, if you could touch base on that particular report in regards to shooting at vehicles, that would be good for the board to know that is something that still has not been handled from the 8 Can't Wait report. And it's because they're still trying to figure out what the language is and how that recommendation is going to go. So, thank you.
Sure. The 8 Can't Wait report made 3 recommendations. We had responses to 2 of those. The 3rd recommendation was shooting at moving vehicles and strengthening the policy around shooting at moving vehicles. The week after the COB's 8 Can't Wait report came out, the PERF, the Policing Executive Research Forum, released a model policy that's similar, but also includes language around mass casualty incidents and shooting at moving vehicles. So there's multiple different recommendations from different sources around what best practice looks like on this. And so I know there's many police departments around the country that are looking at these policies to figure out which of the policies are most effective, and there's a variety of policies that have been implemented at different police departments related to shooting and moving vehicles.
Mr. Kamaguch.
Yeah, thank you for that, Chair. I'm kind of on the same wavelength as Judge Brown. Is there any type of way that in the future, when we get responses, they can come with dates or timeframes? Because some of these recommendations seems to be like extremely important. So I'm just curious if there's a way, like we can politely request that when any of our things come before the chief and he decides to respond or like says whether he accepts a recommendation or not, that the ones that he do partially accept or accept, that come with a time frame so we have a general compass on which way to go. Then also, I was curious if how people feel about responding sooner rather than later. I don't know if that needs to be kind of like what Member Hayes was saying. I don't know if that needs to be an official board action, but I was curious about how board members felt about actually responding sooner rather than later.
Thank you, Mr. Kamaguch. As far as the request for a timeline from MNPD as to when they could implement a policy recommendation that they accept, I think that's something that we could definitely request going forward. Some language in there, if you accept this policy recommendation, please provide a timeline of when you think that it could be implemented, right?
Right, that very specifically, and when things are partially accepted, like at least give us a time frame on when they're going to be revisited, or when we're going to like be able to follow up and talk about it again.
Mm-hmm. Right. And to hear from other board members here about responding sooner. Dr. Kong, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a quick question to Dr. Velir. Also wanted to echo Judge Brown's comments on just how thoughtful and great the recommendations are. For recommendation 7, around the interactive dashboard, I noticed the partial acceptance and sort of the pivot to, dependent on IT capabilities. Do you know if there are other departments that have developed a similar type of dashboard that would, I guess require the same level of IT capabilities, just sort of reference to make it easier, if that makes sense?
Yeah, the existing dashboards that are available on Nashville.gov are pretty limited. There's a couple examples that I can think of. The mayor's office of performance review or performance metrics, they have a dashboard, but it's very simple in nature. So it's just a few data points and just provide some overtime information. I've been in conversation with ITS about our department having some of those capabilities, and it's actually in the ITS strategic plan, and so that's in their 1-year plan is to build in some of the capabilities for stronger data communication and have that integrated into the open data portal. And so those are conversations that we've been having from our department with ITS around some of our needs around visualizing data for the community. There are some maps on Nashville.gov that use ArcGIS or Esri mapping capabilities. But as far as some of the data analytics that would go into some of the dashboard in order to make it a really usable framework, those have not really been as developed. And so I do think that that's been a limitation that a lot of departments have pointed out and is one of the priorities in the strategic plan for ITS.
Thanks.
Dr. Hildreth.
Thank you. I wanted to speak to echo my colleagues' concerns and recommendations about timely response and time definite. And I am wondering if our work, sequential and successive work with the memorandum of understanding, where in our most recent iteration, we clarified and tightened timelines and were met with a great deal of cooperation, leads me to wonder if it might be helpful for the executive committee to look carefully and think about writing a letter to MMPD requesting specific, I'm sorry, I have a cat who's trying to be in the public record. If we could make a specific recommendation, a certain number of days on a certain trigger, and see if that would be agreed to. And if not, then this becomes another item that we might want to think about when it comes time for the regular review or even an emergent review. Our current relationship leads me to believe that the specific offer by writing might be something that would accomplish our concerns. And that was my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hildreth. Yeah, I agree that based on the level of cooperation that we've received, that I think we could get that, and the executive committee could also take it up as well. Any other questions there? Director Fisher.
Yeah, and I just, before we closed out, this has nothing to do with the use of force, but this is a roll call training that we received. And usually when they implement changes, we get roll call trainings that talk about the change that has occurred. And so I haven't received any of those, so I don't know how the implementation into the manual, what the use of force changes look like. And that's something that I can follow up with to find out how that looks. And segueing into, I did receive a new roll call training that was new for the month of February before we elected our new board members. And so I just wanted to kind of touch base on that because I think it's important. This one is a really important one that a lot of people may not know about. And it refers to religious head coverings for sworn employees. And they say that the purpose of this roll call training document is to notify that all employees that there's this change and that in accordance with the current requirements that, and it kind of specifies, those who wear religious head coverings, how they would go about doing that. And I'm going to share that with the new board members. I've already shared it with our previous, our current board members, but I just wanted to let you know that that is usually how implementation looks. It will look like a roll call training. A roll call training document, sorry.
Thank you, Director Fisher. Mr. Kamaguch, I see your hand earlier.
No, I'm good. I want to know how the minutes are going to reflect Professor Hildreth's cat.
We'll have to get the cat's name in order to correctly document that. So if there's nothing else on the policy advisory report there, I would like to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is board committee nominations. So we have a few spots to fill on committees. We lost a few members of our Rules and Bylaws Committee, and I think we are going to create an Education Committee, and there is the spot vacated by Ms. Ross as for second vice chair on the executive committee. So I start with the Rules and Bylaws Committee. Currently, the members of the Rules and Bylaws Committee are, I think, me, Mr. Kamaguch, Dr. Hildreth, and Mr. Witzel. Is that correct?
This is Drew. I believe I'm on as well.
And Mr. Goddard. So if anyone of the new members would like to join the Rules and Bylaws Committee, you're more than welcome. And you can volunteer to do it now or later. Mr. Hayes?
I'd like to volunteer for that committee.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. We also will create then, and if anyone else wants to participate there, let me know. And also we can, you can volunteer at a later date. I don't know when the next policy and rules and bylaws meeting will be, but it should be soon. We have a few things to discuss, and we know we have to finish making the revisions on the bylaws so we can present those to the full board to vote on soon here. Judge Brown?
Can volunteer for that as well.
Thank you, Judge Brown. All right. Director Fitchard, or did you want to talk about the Education Committee a little bit here to give us some context?
Sure. So in our MOU, we have a section in regards to education and training. And so we, of course, as it was mentioned earlier, we talked a little bit about, this equivalent training. And I think that we have a very robust opportunity here that what we put in the MOU in order to create training specifically for COB membership. And so I was very happy to assist Dr. Hildreth with this. And she and I had been discussing education opportunities for our board members. And so that is how that came up. And especially since now with COVID, we have had limited opportunity to have trainings. And so I think when we created this MOU language, it expanded on what we learned at the first Citizens Police Academy, which I thought was really helpful. There was some components of it in that Citizens Police Academy that was specifically geared towards COB membership. And so we liked those things, like the traffic stops, and there was just other things in there that we want to continue in. And so I am, as I sat down and thought about it and what the language is in the MOU, it's definitely an opportunity for us to create some type of educational opportunity for the COB in conjunction with MMPD, whether it be with the training academy staff or with, recruit training, or however they want to do it. But the commander over there was open to, I met him and I told him that we would be in touch, and he seemed to be open to that. And so I am going to invite Dr. Hildreth to speak on that a little bit too, if she is willing to talk about that.
Thank you, Director Fitchard. I absolutely agree. We have an opportunity here to ensure that communication and education goes in both directions. So not only will the COB board members be trained in police protocol, but we also want to create opportunities to provide training for MMPD, specifically with respect to those matters that are of direct concern to our community members who are on the front lines of this work. And so this is a long-standing goal that Director Fitcher and I have shared, and I would be honored and pleased to receive appointment to this committee if that were appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hildreth. Would anyone volunteer to join Dr. Hildreth on the Education Committee?
This
Mr.
is
Goddard. And Mr. Goddard and Ms. McCree have volunteered.
This is Member Witzel. I volunteer.
Thank you, Mr. Witzel. Great.
It's Officer Holloway. I have more experience than anybody on the board with the police department, so I would like to volunteer for that.
Thank you, Mr. Holloway. Great. Well, I'll leave it to you all to figure out time to meet. When is best for you? I don't know if we want to, since we've been talking about timelines, if we want to put a timeline on this, but I think it's going to be pretty fluid, and I think it's going to be really ongoing. The work isn't going to end, I think, for the Education Committee. So I don't think that we need to put any deadline on this type of work, but happy to consider that if anyone has any thoughts on that. Director Fisher.
Yeah, I think what we can do is at least get together for at least an introduction of and sit down and get some ideas together, and maybe we can do that next month, and I can send out a doodle poll and just see what everyone's availability is, so that at least if we can just sit down and kind of get our thoughts together on what we want to do with the committee, that would be good.
Great, and I guess, will you find a time to meet that works for everyone?
Yes, I'll send out the doodle poll.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions there? Not. The last thing is the spot, the second vice chair spot that was occupied by Ms. Ross. Given that I appointed Mr. Goddard secretary to replace Mr. Sweeney, I would like to appoint someone to fill the spot of Ms. Ross as second vice chair, and if she should accept, I would like to appoint Dr. Kong as second vice chair of the COB.
I accept.
Thank you, Dr. Kong. I think you'll be a valuable addition to the executive committee to join me, Mr. Kamaguch, and Mr. Goddard. And I look forward to, we all look forward to working with you, as well as all the other new board members. But thank you so much for volunteering. I know your time is valuable. And that is it on the agenda there. Mr. Kamaguch.
Thank you for the vice chair. I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time, but I was curious about in what process we have now that board member Hughes is no longer with us. It feels natural to talk about it right here, but I don't want to jump ahead if it's going to be covered earlier. Later.
I think so. So we've submitted to Metro Council that there's a vacancy. I don't know what process they are going to go through quite yet. I hope that they reopen the process for nominations, because I think that many people, many organizations may not have nominated someone because they thought that Mr. Hughes represented what they wanted to see on the board. So I hope that Metro Council will recognize that and open the process for people who may want to nominate someone to fill that spot. But I'm not sure yet. So we'll keep you updated on that. Do we have any public comment?
No, we don't have any public comments for this meeting.
Thank you, Director Fitchard. Any new business or announcements or any questions that you had that we didn't cover here today? Dr. Hildreth.
Chair Martinez, a question. Do we think that we need to make and vote on a motion requesting the chair to send a letter to council stating our desire that the process be open for the reasons you mentioned in the manner that was discussed?
Mr. Kamaguch.
I don't know if that was meant to be a motion, but I second that.
If that was
okay, I'll put it out there as a motion. We move that Chair Martinez write to the Metro Council, advising them of this vacancy and requesting that a full process, including public posting and nomination, be instituted in order to fill this vacancy. That's the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hildreth. Is there a second on the motion?
I would like to second.
Thank you, Mr. Kamaguch. Any focused discussion on the motion? Mr. Kamaguch, is that your hand?
No.
Okay. If there's no focused discussion, let's do a roll call vote here. Judge Brown.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Kamaguch.
Aye.
Mr. Goddard.
Aye.
Mr. Hayes.
Aye.
Dr. Hildreth.
Aye.
Mr. Holloway.
Aye.
Dr. Kang. Aye. Ms. McCree.
Aye.
And Mr. Witzel.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. I will write that letter tonight and make sure that it gets to council tonight as well. Anything else there, Judge Brown?
Just one question. The vacancy, is that one that's from the community or council or mayor?
This would be a community, the community organization spot. Any other new business or announcements? Mr. Kamaguch?
Yeah, this is just more of a comment. And it's a comment to my friend, my brother, Timothy Hughes. I deeply respect everybody on this board, even the new folks, and consider you all family. So I just wanted to say, Tim, I'm gonna miss you. I love struggling through this and working with you, brother. It's been an honor and a pleasure to be able to serve in this capacity with you. I also want to say the disturbing trend that the Tennessee legislator or our elected officials would pick on board members here, specifically the ones that are representing communities that are economically deprived and that have the most intense relationship with police officers, is disturbing and unsettling for me. So I'm hoping that there can be some constructive dialogue or some robust building around the capacity to withstand those type of malicious and vicious attacks against everyday working class people, because it is those voices that this board was created to center. So I just wanted to say that, and I wanted to say to Tim, who I know is listening, that I love you, brother. I appreciate your honor and your service in this work, and I can't wait to continue to build a relationship with you.
Thank you, Mr. Kamaguch. I echo that sentiment. Thank you for saying that. Any other new business comments, announcements? If not, I'll take a motion to adjourn here.
Moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you. Any focused discussion? I'll do a roll call vote here. Judge Brown.
Aye.
Mr. Kamaguch.
Aye.
Mr. Goddard.
Aye.
Mr. Hayes.
Aye.
Dr. Hildreth.
Aye.
Mr. Holloway.
Aye.
Dr. Kong. Ms. McCree.
Aye.
And Mr. Witzel.
Aye.
I vote as well. Thank you very much, everyone. Looking forward to working with everyone. See you, a few of you in 2 weeks, probably in the committee meetings as well as the executive committee meetings, and next month during our March meeting. Thanks a lot.
Thank you
Thank you.
all.
Thank you all.
Good evening.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.org.